What's up, Marvel fans? This is Dan Stevens, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the difference for the Civil War comic book and the Civil War movie. Talk about the difference. So, this is going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the Captain America film yet, you just leave now, and then when you do see the film, come back here to see it. So, how it starts, I'll talk about the comic book one, and then move to how it's different in the movie. So, let's get started. So how it happened. So in the comic book, there was a group of superheroes called the New Warriors, and they wanted to be famous. So they got a bunch of people with the cameras, and what they did was they went to this neighborhood and took on a bunch of supervillains. Now in the part of the fight, Nitro, and what he does is he uses his power and he kills everyone in the neighborhood. So he kills the heroes and he kills 600 people. That includes as well a score with kids in it. Now, in the movie, how they happens is, you had the Loki and his alien army invading New York in the first Avengers film. Then you had the Hydra with the Harry Carriers and the Captain America Winter Soldier. And then also in the Avengers Age of Ultron, you had Ultron bringing Sokovia up by turning, well, he was going to use it as a meteor. And in the Civil War film, Crossbones attempted to kill himself with Cap. But Cap moves away, and then Scarlet comes in. She uses her powers to hold it. She couldn't hold it for long. So she chucks him up in the air, and he blows up. So he dies, and he kills some people in the building on this one floor. So that's the difference. Now for this other one is for Tony, and in the comic book one, Tony attends a funeral when all the people who died, and this mother walks up to him and says, "My son was a big fan of yours," and then she got upset about it. And then Tony said to himself, "I got to join the government. I got to get the heroes to join them as well." Now for the movie, it's kind of similar, but the difference is he's not in a funeral. He's just at a school to talk to students. So what happens? He finishes his talk. He goes back to the stage. Before he leaves, this woman comes over to him, talks to him a bit, and then she says, "My son was in the incident recently," and she blames Tony and the heroes. And as the same, he thinks about, "I got to join the government." Now the conflict. So in the comic book, the heroes all had to reveal their identities. Whoever joined the government, so they had to reveal themselves. So then they joined the government. In the movie, the identities does not really exist in the movie. But what really happens is if you don't join the government, it's just like you just go to retirement. That's what happened. But also from this, in the comic book, Shield what their job was, and the whole thing was, whoever hasn't signed up, they had to go to those heroes and say, if you have to sign up. If you don't, something will happen to you. So in the movie one, as I said, whoever doesn't join them, they go to retirement. But also the whole thing came big because of a big incident happened when in the film they call it the Sokovia Accords. The government, the whole world come together, but then this incident happens like a bomb, and they all blame Bucky for it. He gets framed for it. But what else? Oh, it's forcing them. So in the comic book, Shield had to force the heroes to do it if they don't do it. But as I said, if the heroes didn't join them, something bad happens to them. For the movie, well, really, it's kind of like the same really. But as I said, the general, but that was it. In the difference in the comics, because Shield was involved in the comics, but in the movie universe, live action, Shield are not big. It's just Coulson's team, but they're underground. But General Wasp, who's not called General, he's just Wasp really. He brings us up and brings up the Sokovia War. So that's what happens. Now for villains, in the comic book, I want to say the comic book thing first. There wasn't a main villain, so it was just hero versus hero. In the movie, Barry Zemo was the antagonist. He started all this and he blamed Bucky. But also in the film, you find out that he's a Sokovia. Because in the comics he's a German, but in the film he's a Sokovia. His family died in the Ultron attack, and he wanted to do this because he blamed the Avengers, and he said to himself, if he got the event, the whole heroes fighting each other, then they all end up being killed by one another. That's what their plan was. Now for the villains again, they in the comic book, Tony hired a bunch of villains to join him. That also include the Thunderbolts. That was also Barry Zemo, who was pretending to be a hero, because the Thunderbolts were like a pretend hero group, but turned out to be villains. So you could say Baron was involved with the two, but in the comic he wasn't a main villain. In the movie he's a main villain. Now for Thor and Hawk, but I want to talk about Hawk first. So Hawk in the comic, he gets kicked off in space by a group of superheroes. That's Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt, and etc. And in the movie, because of what happened in the end of Age of Ultron, we see him in the Quinjet, and we don't even know where he is. Is he on Earth, or is he somewhere in the I don't know, like an island or in another country on Earth? But for Thor, in the comic book, well, how it happened was Thor's dead recently, and that's what happened is the first fight happens, and they see Thor coming down, and he joins the fight, and they all going like, "Oh, he's alive!" But then later on, it turned out it was just a clone, like a robot clone of him, called Ragnarok, created by Tony. In the movie one, as we saw in Age of Ultron, he leaves so he can find out what's going on with the Infinity Stones, so he can find out who's pulling strings and everything, and we all know it's Thanos. Now for death in the film, well, in the death thing, in the comic book, Goliath dies, who can turn into a giant. What happens? The Thor clone gets lightning to his hammer, and then he uses the lightning to go through, well, Goliath's chest. Also, a bunch of villains died by Punisher. I'll get into that later. And then, Cap dies, so he gets sniped by Crossbones, and then Mind Control Agent 13 walks up to him and kills him. Now for the movie, what happens? There's no death, but what happens is it's kind of like similar to the comic. But what happens is Vision was trying to hit Falcon with his Mind Stone power with a laser, but Falcon sees it coming, so he moves and he hits Wally, but not like through the chest, just like passive, but hits the chest still. So Wally, he doesn't die, he just becomes paralyzed. Now for the prison, in the comic book, there was the Rift, like an underwater prison, but that was still in it, but it wasn't the big thing. In the comic book, it was the prison called 42 in the negative zone, so whoever didn't join... So it was like, well, the prison was like on this other planet where these creatures live, that called the negative zone. It was not a planet, just the zone, really. And what it was, if the heroes don't join the gunnermen, they're thrown there. And also, later in the comic, the Cap and his heroes go there to free their heroes, and then Iron Man and his team turn out there, and you find out that Invisible Woman betrayed Cap and gave the information to Iron Man. Now, for the movie, it's an underwater prison, so Cap's team get caught, but not Cap and Bucky. They get caught and they go into that prison. And in the end of the film, Cap rescues them, and it's like a breakout, but the difference is Iron Man does get his team to fight them in the prison. Now for the team, like in the comic book, in the comic book, it's a lot of superheroes. So there's a lot of heroes on Cap, and there's a lot on Iron Man, but it includes the villains as well. So that's in the comic book. The movie, it's just like Cap and his 5 members, and Iron Man with his 5 members. Now, Spider-Man in the comic book, he revealed his identity, so the whole world found out. And in part of it, Iron Man gave him the Iron Spider suit. And then after the Goliath had died, Spider-Man changed his mind, so he leaves Iron Man, but then he tries to get away from him, and a bunch of villains chase him, and then Punisher comes in out of nowhere, kills the villains, takes Spider-Man to Cap, and then he's on the Cap side. In the movie, Tony does recruit him, but there's no identity being revealed. So Spider-Man joins him in the airport fight scene, and then Tony tells him that you got to go home in the end of it. So he's not there for long. Now for the size of the war, so in the comic book, it's big because you have a lot of superheroes. So it was a big war. In the movie, because there was only like 12 heroes, like cis versus cis, it wasn't a big war really. Now about heroes swap sides. So in the comic book, as I said, Invisible Woman betrays Cap and goes to Iron Man, or I think it's like that, or it's the opposite around, it's like that. In the I think other heroes did that as well. And also for Spider-Man, he does that. In the movie version, Black Widow betrays Iron Man to get so she can let Cap and Bucky go free. And in the also Black Panther in the after the war betrays Iron Man and helps Cap and his team. The outcome. So in the comic book, Iron Man wins. Or they win, and the whole thing still happens in the aftermath. There's no war, and Cap's members, they all go into hiding. Still, they become the secret warriors. Secret Avengers. So they carry on their job, but in the aftermath, Cap dies in that one. Now for the movie, Iron Man is kind of like Iron Man wins. Yeah, they win, and the Sokovia War Award. Well, the Sokovia thing still happens. Sokovia Accords, that was it. Still happens. But Baron also won as well because he got the heroes to turn one another. And but the Cap and these thingy, like the Secret Avengers, will be happening in the movie universe. Well, I hope. And that's all really. So if I have missed any bits from the comic book, what's different in the movie, sorry about that. It's just I haven't read the comic book one for ages. So sorry if I missed some out. So that's the end of the video. So I hope if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And oh yeah, if you want to see some Marvel pictures from the film one or trailers, I'll leave the descriptions to my Marvel Facebook page. And if you got any friends of yours or people you know who want to hear Marvel news in other ways like this, tell them about me and get them to watch this so I can get more viewers, and so I can get like more subscribers and a lot of views. So hope you enjoy this video. So I'll say goodbye now, and I'll see you again soon. Peace.